Get ready to dream. Close your eyes, the story is about to begin. Lucas Reed was immersed in his world of books and scrolls, surrounded by shelves that seemed to reach the ceiling of his private library. The soft morning light filtered through the windows, illuminating the yellowed pages of ancient texts he had accumulated over the years. Each book was a portal to a forgotten time, and his mind was buzzing with stories of magic and civilizations that had once thrived. But today, his attention was focused on an ancient map he had discovered in a dust-covered tomb at the back of a shelf. The hand-drawn lines were an irresistible invitation to adventure. "This might be what I'm looking for," Lucas murmured, his eyes sparkling with possibility. He carefully unrolled the map, feeling the fragile paper beneath his fingers. The location he sought was a lost temple, the home of the ancients who, according to legends, guarded secrets of ancient magic and boundless knowledge. However, what caught his attention even more was a grimoire resting beside the map, a volume bound in dark leather that seemed to pulse with energy of its own. Lucas extended his hand, and upon touching it, felt a shiver run down his spine. "Lucas, you're just getting yourself into trouble," he murmured to himself, but curiosity was a flame that could not be extinguished. He opened the grimoire, and a golden light emanated from its pages. "What do you hide?" he asked, in a tone almost reverent. That night, Lucas immersed himself in hours of study, his notes scattered across the table. Each spell he discovered drew him in deeper, as if the grimoire itself was whispering secrets into his ear. However, when he finally closed his eyes, exhausted, he was assaulted by a vivid dream. A spectral figure appeared before him, shrouded in ethereal mist. "Lucas Reed," the voice echoed, deep and resonant. "The knowledge you seek comes with a price. The ancients are guardians, but they are also prisoners of their own choices. Beware the ambition that dwells in your heart." Lucas felt a chill run down his spine, his mind troubled by the entity's words. Who are you?" he managed to ask, but the figure began to fade, leaving only a sense of urgency and danger. He awoke with a start, heart racing, the morning light filtering through the window once again. It was just a dream, he told himself, but the unease lingered. That morning, Lucas decided he needed help. The next day, he attended a conference on archaeology, hoping to find someone who could assist him in deciphering the mysteries that were beginning to unfold. Upon entering the room, he was immediately drawn to a woman with brown hair and bright eyes who was speaking about recent discoveries of ancient temples. Her passion for history was contagious. "And so, we can see how civilization developed, but also how its secrets were lost," Ava said, gesturing enthusiastically. Lucas approached, his anxiety growing. "Excuse me, may I join you?" Lucas asked, a bit unsure. "Of course. I'm Ava," she replied, offering a warm smile. "Are you interested in archaeology?" "Yes, I'm Lucas." I'm researching Atlantis and the ancients," he confessed, feeling an immediate connection. "I found a grimoire that may contain secrets about ancient magic." Ava raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A grimoire? That's fascinating. You must tell me more about it. We can work together. I believe there's much to discover." And so, as the conference progressed, the two young people united in a quest for knowledge, each bringing their unique skills. Lucas felt that with Ava by his side, he was closer to unraveling the secrets that could change not only their lives but the fate of Atlantis. The flame of adventure began to burn intensely in his heart. Lucas and Ava embarked on a journey that promised to be as full of mysteries as the ancients they sought. The sun was high in the sky, casting a golden light over the lush landscape of Atlantis as they walked through the dense forest toward the lost temple. The path was narrow and covered in intertwined roots, and the atmosphere pulsed with a strange energy, almost palpable. Lucas, gripping the grimoire tightly, felt a chill run down his spine, as if he were being watched. "Are you nervous?" Ava asked, noticing Lucas's concentrated expression. "It's not nervousness, it's anxiety," he replied, looking down the path ahead. "This grimoire contains secrets that could change everything. What if I'm not prepared for what we'll find?" Ava smiled, encouraging. "We're in this together. And if there's something dangerous, we'll face it together. You're stronger than you think." Lucas nodded, but doubt still lingered in his heart. The forest seemed to whisper, as if the very spirits of the ancients were watching their progress. After a long walk, they arrived at a clearing where the temple loomed majestically, its walls covered in moss and the ancient inscriptions nearly faded by time. The temple was a magnificent structure, carved from rock, with arches reaching toward the sky. "Wow!" exclaimed Ava, admiring the view. "This is incredible. Look at the inscriptions. We need to figure out what they mean." Lucas approached the entrance, where a colossal door stood ajar. When he touched the cold surface of the stone, a wave of energy coursed through his body, and he realized the grimoire in his backpack was starting to glow softly. "Ava, do you feel that?" he asked, his eyes wide. "Yes, it's as if something is calling us," she replied, her gaze fixed on the inscriptions. "Let's go inside." With a deep breath, Lucas pushed the door open, and they stepped into the temple. Darkness enveloped them, but the light from the grimoire illuminated the space before them, revealing a vast and magnificent hall filled with statues of ancients, their faces serene and wise. "Look at this," said Ava, pointing to one of the statues. "It seems to be holding a book." "What does that mean?" "Maybe it's a representation of knowledge," Lucas suggested, his heart racing. "These ancients were the guardians of wisdom. We need to understand how this relates to the grimoire." They approached the inscriptions on the walls, which seemed to tell the story of ancient magic in Atlantis. Lucas began to read aloud, "The magic that resides here is powerful, but also dangerous. Only those with a pure heart can access its true potential." "This is intriguing," Ava said, thoughtful. "But what does a pure heart mean? How will we know if we're ready?" Lucas frowned, concern growing within him. "I don't know, but we have to find out. Oh, grimoire can help us, but what if it is also the source of danger?" As she spoke, a cold wind blew through the temple, and the torches on the walls began to flicker. Suddenly, a dark energy started to emanate from the grimoire, enveloping the hall in a threatening aura. Lucas looked at Ava, his eyes wide with fear. "What is happening?" "Lucas, what have you done?" Ava shouted, stepping back. "Close the book." But before he could respond, a shadow loomed over them, and a sinister laugh echoed through the temple. "Ah, curious youths, you have awakened something you do not comprehend," said a hooded figure that emerged from the darkness. "The power of the ancients must not be disrespected." Lucas felt his heart race. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to hide his fear. "I am one of those who seek the power you have just unleashed," the figure replied, a malicious smile lighting up his dark face. "And now, you are merely pieces in a much larger game." Ava pulled Lucas back, feeling the tension in the air. "We need to get out of here, now," she whispered, starting to retreat toward the exit. "No, wait," Lucas insisted, still fixed on the figure. "We need to understand what this means." "You have no idea what you are dealing with," the figure continued, his voice echoing with malice. "But I do. And I will not let you escape." Lucas knew they were in danger. He looked at Ava, who was clearly terrified, and made a decision. "Let's go. We have to go back and warn the elders. The power we awakened could be more than we imagined." With that, they ran toward the exit, the grimoire pulsing in their hands. As the figure watched them, a cruel smile etched on his face. The temple was no longer just a place of knowledge, but a battleground between light and darkness. Lucas and Ava were immersed in a moment of tranquility, but the peace was an illusion. As they explored the depths of the lost temple, a member of the dissident faction appeared like a specter amid the shadows. The man was tall and thin, with a burning gaze that conveyed a mixture of contempt and determination. He wore a dark robe that seemed to absorb the light around him, and his smile was cold, as if savoring the weakness of his opponents. "Ah, the young explorers of Atlantis, always so eager to unearth secrets that should remain buried," he said, his voice echoing off the temple walls. "Do you really believe that the grimoire is safe in your hands?" Lucas felt a shiver run down his spine. He had already heard of the dissident faction and their insidious plans, but seeing them in action was another story. He exchanged a worried glance with Ava, who was ready to act, her determined gaze reflecting the dim light emanating from the grimoire. "Who are you?" Lucas forced himself to ask, trying to maintain his composure. "What do you want?" "I am an emissary of Corvus," the man replied, crossing his arms. "And I am here to give you a warning. The power you seek is a double-edged sword. You have no idea what you are about to unleash." Ava stepped forward, courage burning in her eyes. "We are not afraid of you. Knowledge is meant to be shared, not kept a secret by those who wish to control it." The man laughed, a sound like distant bells ringing, but devoid of joy. "Do you really think you can stop Corvus? He is always one step ahead, and you two are playing with fire. The grimoire is not just a book, it is a portal to destruction." Lucas paused, feeling the weight of the emissary's words. He looked at the grimoire, now glowing intensely in his hands, as if responding to his fear. "We will not let that happen," he declared, his voice stronger than he felt. "We are here to protect Atlantis, not to destroy it." "Protect? Or allow yourselves to be consumed?" The emissary advanced, threatening. "What you do not realize is that the knowledge you seek could be your ruin. Corvus is already aware of your search, and he will not allow you to interfere with his plans." Before Lucas could respond, the emissary gestured with his hand, and a wave of dark energy surged, making the air vibrate with an intensity that was almost palpable. "Goodbye, foolish youths. Prepare for what is to come." With those words, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving an oppressive silence hanging over the temple. "Lucas, we need to get out of here now," Ava exclaimed, her voice tense. The emissary's warning echoed in her mind, and the urgency of the situation propelled her to act. "Yes, but how?" Lucas looked around. The temple that seemed a refuge had now become a trap. What did he mean by Corvus already being aware of us? We need to understand this. First, we need to find Orion. He might have an idea of how to deal with this, Ava suggested, pulling Lucas toward the exit. As they ran, Lucas began to feel a new energy emanating from the grimoire. Something was changing within it, and it wasn't just fear. He was sure the grimoire was manifesting in ways he did not fully understand. "Are you okay?" Ava asked, noticing he hesitated. "Lucas, we need to hurry." "I'm fine, but I feel like the magic is intensifying." "I don't know if it's a good idea to keep this," Lucas replied, his mind filled with distorted visions of Atlantis in ruins, a city of shadows and despair. "We need to understand what we are dealing with before it's too late," Ava insisted, her determination renewed. "For Atlantis." "For Atlantis," Lucas echoed, feeling a new sense of urgency. But deep down, a voice whispered to him, warning of the dangers to come, and the weight of responsibility began to bear down on his shoulders. In an environment shrouded in mystery and tension, the atmosphere of the secret meeting of the elders pulsed with concern. The hall was illuminated by torches that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls, while the smell of dried herbs and candles permeated the air, all enveloped in a tense silence. The elders, venerable figures with long white beards and robes rich in ancient symbols, gathered in a circle. In the center, a large altar of black marble held a golden chalice, a symbol of their authority and responsibility. Orion, the wisest among them, was the one leading the meeting. His piercing gaze swept across the room, assessing each of his companions as he spoke in a grave and serene voice. "My brothers and sisters, the influence of the dissident faction is becoming increasingly alarming. Lucas and Ava, in their quest for knowledge, may be in more danger than we imagine," he said, his expression laden with concern. "We need to protect the youths," Eldra, an elder with silver hair, interjected. "They have no idea of the forces they are awakening. The grimoire, it is both a treasure and a curse. We must intervene before it is too late." "I agree, but how?" "We need more information about what Lucas really discovered and how this could affect the city," replied the Los, a robust elder with visible scars on his face, the result of past battles. "With each passing day, darkness draws closer." Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, Lucas was immersed in his visions. He had become a prisoner of his own experiences, the horrors of the future dancing in his mind like restless shadows. When he found himself again with Orion, he felt a sudden need to share his anguish. Orion, Lucas began, his voice trembling with emotion, I don't know what is happening to me. The visions are becoming unbearable. I see Atlantis in ruins, ancient magic being used irresponsibly. What should I do? Orion looked at him with compassion, but the hesitation in his gaze was undeniable. Lucas, the knowledge you seek is not trivial. You must understand that ancient magic comes with a cost. With every spell, with every discovery, there is a risk that could affect not only you but the entire city. I know, but I feel I need to understand. I need to know how to use this power responsibly. The grimoire, it is the key to that. Lucas exclaimed, his determination growing. Be careful, young one. Curiosity is a dangerous path. I cannot help you decipher the grimoire without fearing the consequences. What you seek may be more than just knowledge, it could become an obsession, warned Orion, his grave tone reverberating in the air. But Lucas was determined. I have to try, Orion. Please, help me. If the visions are true, we need to act before it's too late. The wise elder sighed, realizing that Lucas's determination was unshakable. If you insist, then we must proceed with caution. But remember, power demands responsibility. We cannot toy with forces we do not fully understand. With a nod, Lucas felt a bit more empowered, but also overwhelmed by the responsibility he now felt on his shoulders. He knew that the line between wisdom and ruin was thin. Meanwhile, in a dark, shadowy room, Corvus, a disguised elder, listened to everything. His eyes gleamed with a sinister purpose, and he smiled at the thought of how he could use Lucas's desperation to his advantage. In his heart, he knew that betrayal was approaching, and Lucas's uncertainty could be the key to his own plans for domination. Back at the elders' meeting, Lucas stood up. I can't wait any longer. If we don't have the courage to face what is coming, Atlantis will be doomed. I will use a spell from the grimoire to protect myself. Even if it's risky, I need to do something now. Lucas, don't do this. You don't understand what this could provoke. Orion shouted, but it was too late. The young man had already opened the grimoire, and a powerful energy began to emanate from the page he had chosen. The room seemed to tremble under the intensity of the magic Lucas was about to invoke, as a sinister shadow began to form around him, heralding chaos and destruction. Darkness quickly spread through the temple, enveloping Lucas, Ava, and Orion in a heavy mist that seemed to vibrate with malevolent energy. The sound of distant thuds reverberated through the stone walls, echoing the call of something ancient and powerful. The mystical creature Lucas had inadvertently summoned now moved freely, its threatening presence making the shadows dance around them. We need to contain it before it causes more damage, Ava said, her face illuminated only by the flickering light of a torch she held. Her voice, though firm, carried a hint of concern. Orion nodded, his gaze fixed on the indistinct form moving before them. Lucas, you need to concentrate. If there's a way to control it, you must find it. But be careful, ancient magic has its consequences. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine. He never imagined that the power of the grimoire could manifest in such a way. But how can I control it? I don't know how this works. He looked at the grimoire, now open in his hands, its pages seeming to pulse with a life of their own. Listen to your intuition, Lucas, Orion said, with a reassuring but urgent tone. You are already connected to this energy. Try to feel what it desires. Taking a deep breath, Lucas closed his eyes and focused. The visions in his mind became confusing, but suddenly he felt a connection. The creature was not just a destructive force, there was something more, a deep sadness and contained rage. He opened his eyes and suddenly realized he could see through the darkness. I feel it is hurt, he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. That's what magic does, Ava interjected, her tone more assertive. It absorbs emotions, experiences. If you can find a way to calm it, perhaps we can avoid disaster. The creature, a titanic shadow with eyes that shone like stars in a night sky, growled and shot a jet of black energy toward them, making the stones around vibrate. Lucas knew there was no more time. I will try, he said, with renewed determination. But you need to help me keep the magic under control. Ava and Orion positioned themselves beside him, forming a circle. "We are with you, Lucas," Orion said, his voice steady. "Let's channel our energy together." 1, 2, 3. Ava shouted, and simultaneously they united their voices in a deep, resonant chant, echoing the words Lucas had read in the grimoire. The energy around them began to change, and the creature hesitated, as if evaluating this new approach. "That's it. Keep going," Lucas exclaimed, feeling the connection strengthen. "Feel her pain, her rage. Let's help her find peace." The creature began to writhe, its forms distorting under the weight of unresolved emotions. Lucas remembered the stories he had heard about the elders and how they wielded magic. He focused on invoking a healing spell, one that could free the creature from its pain. "I see her. I feel her," Lucas shouted, and in a swift motion, he extended his hand toward the creature. "Come back to us. Don't be afraid." And suddenly, a profound silence enveloped the room. The creature stopped, its black energy beginning to dissipate, revealing a more ethereal and delicate form. But at that moment of fragility, the descending faction, which had been lurking, decided to act. A group of shadows lunged forward, led by a cold-eyed man who smiled arrogantly. "Then, you finally succumbed to power, Lucas Reed," he said, his voice sharp as a blade. "But you're not the only one seeking the power of the ancients." Lucas felt adrenaline coursing through his veins. "What do you want?" He turned, ready to defend his friends and the creature that was now under his protection. "Ah, the creature you summoned is merely a small step. We came for much more," the man replied, gesturing to the others. "And now, you will help us obtain it." "Never," Lucas shouted, feeling courage bubbling within him. "This is not a game. You cannot control what you do not understand." The tension escalated, and Lucas realized that the battle that had begun with the summoning of the creature was now turning into a fight for the survival of Atlantis. He looked at Ava and Orion, and a silent understanding passed between them. They needed to act swiftly, before the ambition of the dissident faction destroyed everything they were trying to protect. Lucas was sitting in a dark corner of the library, surrounded by piles of dusty books and ancient scrolls. The light from the lantern flickered on the walls, casting shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of times long past. His heart was still racing after the battle against the mystical creature. He couldn't shake off the guilt that consumed him. The city of Atlantis was in danger, and he knew that his reckless actions had contributed to it. "I need to understand what happened," he murmured to himself, his voice echoing among the books. He closed his eyes, reliving the moment he summoned the creature. How could I have been so reckless? The weight of responsibility pressed down on his shoulders. It was time to seek guidance, and he knew exactly who to turn to, the ancients. As soon as the meeting was convened, Lucas made his way to the Temple of the Ancients, a place that exuded wisdom and mystery. The walls were adorned with ancient inscriptions that told the history of Atlantis and the powerful beings who once ruled it. He found the ancients gathered in a circle, their expressions serious and concerned. "Lucas Reed," began Orion, the most respected sage among them, "your presence here is a sign that you recognize the gravity of the situation." The elder looked into the young man's eyes, searching for the truth behind his actions. "Tell us what occurred." Lucas took a deep breath and, in a trembling voice, began to recount the visions that tormented him and the events that led to the summoning of the creature. I saw the future, Orion. Atlantis in ruins, surrounded by darkness. I was guided by a force I do not understand, and in a moment of desperation, I used a spell from the grimoires. The ancients exchanged glances. The tension in the room was palpable. "You know that ancient magic carries an immense weight," Lucas warned one of the ancients, a woman with hair as white as snow. "Your irresponsible use could have devastating consequences." "I know," Lucas exclaimed, his voice nearly a shout. "But I didn't know this would happen. I just wanted to protect the city. Now, I feel like I've lost control. The energy we unleashed, it's becoming increasingly volatile." His gaze drifted away, ashamed. Orion stepped forward, his presence reassuring. "What did you feel when you summoned the creature? There was something more, wasn't there?" He looked intently at Lucas, as if trying to decipher the mysteries that resided in the young man's mind. "Yes, a darkness that felt alive," Lucas replied, his voice now softer. "It fed on fear and pain. I didn't know magic was so tied to those feelings. What is this force I awakened?" The ancients gathered in a murmur, discussing the nature of ancient magic and its dangers. Lucas felt that his own uncertainty echoed in their words. Finally, an elder addressed him. "You need to understand that magic is an extension of ourselves. What you felt was a reflection of your own insecurities and fears. You must learn to master them before attempting to control any power." "But how can I do that?" Lucas asked, his voice heavy with despair. "I don't want anyone else to get hurt because of me." Orion looked at Lucas with understanding. "We need to work together. You are not alone on this journey. If you open up to us and share your visions and fears, we can help you decipher the grimoire and understand the true nature of magic." Lucas nodded slowly, feeling a slight relief. I need to. But I fear there are still dangers lurking." "We are aware of the threats," Orion replied, the firmness in his voice a balm for Lucas's unrest. "However, it is essential that you join us. Together, we can restore peace to Atlantis." With that, Lucas felt a spark of hope rekindle within him. He was no longer alone, the ancients were willing to guide him. "Thank you, Orion. I promise I will do whatever it takes to correct my mistakes." As the meeting drew to a close, Lucas realized that the true journey was just beginning. He was determined to understand not only the grimoire but also himself and the mysteries surrounding Atlantis. The future of his city depended on it, and he would not rest until peace was restored. Lucas, Ava, and Orion gathered in a secret room, illuminated only by the soft light of candles that cast dancing shadows on the stone walls. The atmosphere was thick with the deep scent of herbs and ancient scrolls, a space where the wisdom of the ancients met the uncertainties of the present. Lucas felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, increasingly evident since the horrors of the grimoire began to manifest. "We need to find Corvus before he causes more damage," Lucas said, his voice tinged with urgency. "He is behind the dissident faction, and we cannot let him continue to manipulate the ancients and the city." Ava, with a determined look, crossed her arms. "We are at a disadvantage. We can't just go to him without a plan. We need to gather information first." Orion, who had been more quiet, observed the two young people with a concerned expression. "Corvus is cunning. He does not risk being seen easily. We need a way to lure him into a trap." "I know a ritual that can help us," Ava said, recalling an ancient text she had studied. "If we perform a summoning that draws his attention, we can force him to reveal himself. But, of course, this will have its consequences." Lucas nodded, adrenaline flowing through his veins. "We'll do it. We need to take that risk. What do you need for the summoning?" Ava began to list the necessary items: rare herbs, precious stones, and a magic circle. The conversation flowed rapidly among them, each contributing what they knew until the plan was underway. With renewed determination, they split up to gather the materials. That night, under the light of a full moon, Lucas, Ava, and Orion met in an open field, far from the city, where the sound of the wind seemed to whisper secrets. They traced the magic circle with shimmering sand and positioned the objects carefully. Ava recited the ancient words, her voice echoing in the silent night. "Corvus, hear our call. Appear and show yourself." The words reverberated in the air, and a strange energy began to concentrate within the circle. Suddenly, a shadow formed in the center of the circle, and Corvus appeared, like a mirage emerging from the darkness. He had an imposing presence, wrapped in a black cloak that seemed to absorb the light around him. His gaze was cold and calculating. "Do you really think you can summon me like this?" Corvus laughed, his voice low and threatening. "Poor souls, you don't know who you're dealing with." Ava stepped forward, determination in her eyes challenging the elder's intimidation. "We know you're manipulating the dissident faction. Your plan of betrayal ends here." Corvus smiled, as if he were amused. "Betrayal? Oh, no, my dear. What I do is merely the natural evolution of power. The city needs new leaders, and I am the only one who can guide it. Your desire for power is destroying everything we love. Lucas exclaimed, indignation growing within him. We will not let you continue. Corvus raised a hand, and a wave of black energy began to form around him. Do you think you have the power to stop me? Your weakness is emblematic. An elder does not let himself be intimidated by inexperienced youth. At that moment, the tension exploded. The energy of the circle began to pulse, and Lucas realized they needed to act quickly. Ava, we need to use the containment spell. I'm trying, she shouted, but Corvus's power was growing and distorting reality around them. Suddenly, one of the shadows behind Corvus moved, revealing one of Lucas's allies, who was in a position of betrayal. He had infiltrated and was now standing beside Corvus. This is only the beginning, Lucas. You will be responsible for the fall of Atlantis. Lucas felt his heart sink. How could you do this? I have always been with Corvus. Power is seductive, and you never understood that, the traitor replied with a wicked smile before attacking. In the moment of confusion, Corvus took advantage of the distraction. Goodbye, young ones. I hope you have a good life, while it lasts. And with a gesture, he disappeared into the shadows, taking the traitor with him and leaving Lucas and Ava stunned. We cannot leave it like this, Lucas said, determination burning in his chest. We need to find him and stop him from causing any more harm. We need to rescue the elders and save Atlantis. Lucas took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline pulse through his veins. He was in a dark alley, hiding behind a pile of ancient stones that formed part of the ruins of a smaller temple where Corvus had settled with his henchmen. The weight of the grimoires in his backpack felt heavier than ever, as if each page were laden not only with spells but with the weight of his responsibility. Beside him, Ava surveyed the environment with the keen eyes of an experienced archaeologist. We need to be quick. Corvus must be somewhere around here, Ava whispered, her tone laden with determination. She looked at Lucas, who was focused, the expression of a young man who had discovered the true meaning of courage. I feel he's closer than we think. If we can catch Corvus by surprise, we might end this once and for all, Lucas replied, adjusting the strap of his backpack. We need a plan. Ava nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and anticipation. If you can use the grimoire to strengthen our spells, maybe we can take down his security before he has a chance to react. Lucas agreed, carefully opening the grimoire. The pages were filled with ancient symbols and powerful spells, but he knew that true strength didn't come just from the written words but from the bond between them. Let's do this together. Trust me, Ava. We are stronger together. I trust you, Lucas. Let's go, she encouraged, with a nervous smile. The two moved toward the center of the dissident faction's camp, where Corvus was likely plotting his next move. The sound of conversation and laughter from the henchmen echoed in the air, a reminder of the shadow looming over Atlantis. Lucas began to murmur the words of a protection spell, feeling the magical energy vibrate around him. Now, let's do this, Lucas exclaimed, and they both launched toward the group. The spell Lucas had conjured enveloped them in an aura of light, causing the henchmen to look in their direction, surprised. Who are you? Shouted one of the henchmen, brandishing a sword. We're here to put an end to this, Corvus. Come out and face us. Lucas challenged, his voice resonating with newfound confidence. From inside the tent, a dark laugh echoed. Ah, Lucas Reed and his lovely archaeologist. Do you really think you can stop me? Corvus emerged, his malevolent gaze fixated on Lucas. You are just children playing with fire. This ends now. Ava shouted as she cast a containment spell, creating a magical barrier between them and the henchmen. Let's go, Lucas. Lucas felt the energy flowing through him and began to conjure a storm of magical energy, directing it toward the group. For Atlantis, he shouted, and a wave of light exploded toward the henchmen. The battle began, with spells being cast from both sides. Watch out! Ava shouted as one of the henchmen advanced toward her. She skillfully dodged, using her archaeological knowledge to bring down a weakened pillar that collapsed onto the enemies. We're almost there. Stay strong. Lucas encouraged, but soon realized the fight was intensifying. He saw a henchman sneaking up behind Ava. Ava! Behind you! With a quick movement, Lucas cast a protection spell, creating a barrier that prevented the attack. You won't hurt her, he shouted, now more determined than ever. Ava smiled, impressed with Lucas's skill. We have to move, Lucas. They're organizing. Right. Let's find Corvus. Lucas replied, and together they advanced toward the center of the camp, where Corvus was preparing to cast a powerful spell. However, as they got closer, an even greater betrayal unfolded. One of Lucas's allies, who had infiltrated among them, revealed his true loyalty and attacked from the flank, sending a spell of black energy toward Lucas. Did you think you could defeat us? Fool! Lucas dodged, but the attack caught him off guard, making him lose his balance. Who are you? He shouted, his confidence wavering momentarily. An ally of Corvus. And you are nothing without your grimoire. The traitor laughed, mocking Lucas as he struggled to regain his footing. We can't let him escape. Ava shouted, but chaos was setting in, and Lucas felt the weight of time and betrayal pressing down on his shoulders. They had to act quickly, or everything they had fought to protect would be at risk. Lucas and Ava found themselves in an ancient council chamber of the elders, the walls covered with inscriptions that seemed to glow with an ethereal light. The atmosphere was charged with tension and anxiety. After the recent betrayals and the growing threat of Corvus, time was running out. They needed to act swiftly to preserve the city of Atlantis. We need to find a way to reverse what Corvus has done, Lucas said, his voice tinged with determination. The grimoire must contain a spell that can help us. He flipped through the yellowed pages of the book, his heart racing with each line he read. Ava, with her keen gaze, observed the annotations around her. Lucas, remember that knowledge is a double-edged sword. We need to be careful. If Corvus continues his magical storm, there won't be a city left to save. You're right, Lucas took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm within him. But what if we find a spell that not only neutralizes the storm but also breaks Corvus's influence over it? Ava furrowed her brow, her fingers tracing the pages of the grimoire. Here. It says there's a union spell that can amplify the Elder's strength, channeling it for a single purpose. But it requires a great concentration of magical energy and the presence of the Elders. We need them, Lucas affirmed, the idea taking shape in his mind. If we can gather the Elders and make them unite for a single purpose, perhaps we can reverse the damage. They left the chamber and headed to the great temple where the Elders used to convene. The path there was a race against time, and the dark cloud beginning to form in the sky was a constant reminder of the urgency of the situation. Upon arrival, they found a group of Elders in quiet discussion, all with worried expressions. We need your help, Lucas intervened, his voice resonating in the room. Corvus is summoning a magical storm that could destroy Atlantis. We found a spell that can help us, but we need all of you united. Orion, the wise elder, looked at Lucas with a mix of concern and hope. The union of the Elders is vital, but distrust is growing among us. Corvus has sown doubt, and many fear joining you. What makes you think we can trust again? If we don't unite, we'll lose everything, Ava replied, her voice firm. We must put our differences aside and fight together. What Corvus wants is division. He feeds on fear and betrayal. The murmurs among the Elders began to rise, some appearing hesitant. But Lucas, feeling the energy around him, decided to take a risk. I have seen what happens when magic is used irresponsibly. The visions I had showed me a dark future. We need to act now, before it's too late. One of the younger Elders, named Alara, stood up. If the grimoire holds what you say, then I am with you. I've seen what Corvus is capable of, and I cannot allow myself to remain idle while he destroys our city. Gradually, other Elders began to agree, one by one. Determination grew, and the room filled with new energy. Lucas knew the moment was approaching. Let's prepare the ritual. We need to focus on the positive energy, on the hope we have for Atlantis. With the Elders gathered, Lucas and Ava began to explain the details of the spell they were to conjure. We need a circle of union, Lucas said, his voice filled with urgency. Each of you must channel your energy and focus on a single purpose, to protect our city. As everyone took their places, Lucas felt the magical connection begin to flow between them. Hands intertwined, and ancient words began to be whispered in unison. The energy rose, and Lucas could feel the power of unity pulsing around him. But just before they could complete the ritual, a thunderous roar echoed through the sky. Corvus's magical storm was approaching, and the pressure intensified. Lucas closed his eyes, concentrating, as Ava's voice echoed in his mind, "We are together, Lucas. Don't give up now." With renewed determination, Lucas looked at the elders. "Let's go. It's now or never." And so, with one last cry of courage, they raised their voices and energies, ready to face the storm that threatened to engulf Atlantis. The final battle took shape in the sky of Atlantis, transforming into a terrifying spectacle of lights and shadows. Dark clouds gathered, forming a magical storm that sent lightning crackling across the city, illuminating the determined face of Lucas Reed. He knew the fate of Atlantis was in his hands. With the energy of the storm pulsating around him, he felt his heart race, not just from fear, but from the need to protect those he loved. "Lucas, the storm is fueled by pain and betrayal," Ava shouted, her eyes shining with determination. "We need to unite our forces. We can't let Corvus win." Lucas nodded, realizing that the true battle was as much internal as it was external. "You're right, Ava. The strength isn't in the magic we possess, but in the unity we form. We need to focus." As the thunder of the storm roared, Corvus's face appeared among the clouds, a malevolent smile forming on his lips. "You think you can stop me? I am the true power of Atlantis. Betrayal is my ally, and your pain will be my victory. Corvus, your reign of terror ends here." Lucas shouted, feeling Orion and the elders by his side. "We do not fear you." The storm rumbled, as if responding to Corvus's call, sending lightning bolts towards the group. Lucas raised his hand, concentrating. He knew he needed to use the grimoire, but not just as a weapon. It was essential to understand the essence of what he was facing. "I will absorb the storm, but I can't do this alone," Lucas declared, looking at the elders. "We need to channel our energy together. Unity is our strength." Orion, with his deep and wise voice, replied, "Yes, Lucas. The ancient magic is strong, but it is the connection between us that makes it invincible. Let's go together." The elders began to chant a spell, their voices echoing in harmony through the chaos. Lucas felt their energy flow into him, and at the same time, he began to chant the words from the grimoire. The storm began to twist, as if it were struggling against the influence that now dominated it. "Corvus, you don't understand anything about power," Lucas shouted again, the storm starting to calm in response to the spell. "You let ambition consume you." "Ambition is what makes me strong, kid," Corvus retorted, furious. "Pain is the source of my power. You can't stop me." But Lucas felt the strength of the elders and Ava around him. He remembered the visions of devastation he had seen and what was at stake. "If pain is what feeds you, then I will absorb this storm and transform it. Your betrayal will not be in vain, Corvus." In a moment of sacrifice, Lucas invoked all the power of the grimoire, absorbing the storm that was growing ever more intense. He felt torn between the desire to win and the weight of responsibility. "Ava, now!" he shouted, and she immediately joined him, channeling her strength. "Let's do this together, Lucas. For Atlantis." Ava shouted, her voice resonating with unwavering determination. The climax of the battle arrived as Lucas, feeling the storm being absorbed into his being, faced Corvus. The true strength of Atlantis is not in betrayal, but in unity. And that's what you'll never understand. Corvus, now surrounded by the light emanating from the union of Lucas and the elders, screamed in frustration. "This isn't possible. I am power." In one last effort, Lucas released the absorbed energy, transforming the storm into light, which spread throughout the city, healing wounds and dissipating darkness. Corvus's power was finally neutralized, and he fell, defeated. The city of Atlantis began to shine again, pain and betrayal being replaced by hope and unity. Lucas, exhausted, looked at Ava and the elders, a weary smile forming on his face. "We did this together," he said, feeling the weight of the grimoire in his hands. "Protecting Atlantis isn't just about knowing ancient magic, but knowing how to use that knowledge for good." The elders approached, recognizing Lucas not just as a scholar, but as a true hero. "You showed courage and wisdom, Lucas. Knowledge is powerful, but how you use it is what truly matters." And so, the city of Atlantis, now free from darkness, celebrated its new hero, while Lucas, Ava, and Orion prepared to face new challenges together with the certainty that true magic lies in unity and friendship.